PHP is an acronym for PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. The PHP scripts are executed on the server, and the result is returned to the browser as plain HTML. Hey, what's up everybody? In this video, I will be introducing you to PHP. This video is meant for beginners, however, experienced users can also hang around as they might pick something along the way. That out of the way, let's get started. What do we expect from the tutorial? Well, we'll learn what we need to get started with PHP, the PHP syntax, the PHP comments, the PHP variables, the PHP print and echo statements, the PHP data types, and the PHP if else and else if. All you will need to get started with PHP is to install a web browser if you are yet to install one. You'll also need to install a XAMPP or WAMP. These are free and open source cross-platform web server solution stack package developed by Apache Threads, consisting mainly of the Apache server, MariaDB, and interpreters for script written in the PHP and Perl programming languages. You will also need to install a text editor. This is the program you will need to write your code. There are several options out there, ranging from the simplest one, the Notepad, up to the most advanced ones like Visual Studio, Brackets, Sublime, just to mention but a few. For me, I usually use Visual Studio because it is one of the advanced, free, and easy to use text editor. You're free to use any, but note that some you have to pay some monthly subscription. A PHP script starts with opening PHP tag and ends with an ending PHP tag. As I have mentioned earlier, PHP script is executed on the server and the plain HTML results are sent back to the browser. It's important to note that PHP scripts end with a semicolon. Also equally important is that PHP classes, functions, and keywords are not case sensitive. However, all variable names are case sensitive. To write our first PHP script and execute it, we will need to start 3 programs. That is, our text editor, in this case Visual Studio Code, a browser, in this case I'm using Mozilla Firefox, and a web server, in this case I'll be using XAMPP. So let's do this. And so the first program that I will start here is the web server, and I've said in this case I'm using XAMPP. So I have it pinned in the taskbar for ease of access. So I'll just come and click on it here. So if it is not pinned on your taskbar, of course you can just go to the search and search for the web server that you have installed, but I would recommend that you go with XAMPP. So just go to your search bar there if you've already installed the program. I'll be providing a link in the description of this video just so that you can be able to click it and install XAMPP if you are yet to do that, because this is one of the programs that you need if you are to write in PHP and execute your code. So right now I'm starting XAMPP, and I also think that simultaneously I can also start my browser, and I'll be using Mozilla Firefox. So again, a link in the description if you have not downloaded that. I would also recommend that you use Mozilla Firefox, but you're free to use any web server, or sorry, that is a web browser within your niche. So I'll be starting Mozilla Firefox there, and we have the web server XAMPP starting here, and at the same time we're also starting Mozilla Firefox. And what you need to do when the XAMPP control panel opens, you need to start the Apache and you also need to start the MySQL. So for the MySQL part, this is if you be accessing the database, but if you're not accessing the database, then there's no need of starting the MySQL. But for me, I'm just used to starting both of them, so I'll just click the start to start the Apache. So this will help in executing the PHP script. I'll also start the MySQL just in case we will need the database somewhere. So when you click the start, you should ensure that it turn green. So if it is not yet green, then it has not yet successfully started. Sometimes you may run into problems, and of course there are tutorials all over the internet that can help you to fix that. So if it turns red, then it means there is a problem that of course need to be checked on. So I'm also starting Mozilla Firefox in the background, as you can see. So I'll start all the programs and then I'll be back. Well, when you open Visual Studio for the first time, you'll be taken to this screen, and as you can see from here, you can be able to start a new file, and this is what we'll be doing. You can also be able to open a folder. So this is if you've already created a folder. You can also be able to open it from here, or add a workplace folder. So in my case, I already have a workspace folder open, so I can just come and click on this, and I'm going to see the workspace folder that I'm using. And this is very simple to create, and let me just take you through how you can be able to do this. So the first thing that we need to do is to open a folder, and this specific folder should be within your web server folder. So let me show you what I mean. So when you install your XAMPP web server, you find that when you move to this location, this is your local disk C, you're going to find a folder called XAMPP. You're going to find a folder called XAMPP, and this folder is where you'll be installing all your PHP projects. All your PHP scripts should be within this folder. So I would like you to navigate to this PC, local disk C. You open your XAMPP folder, and then you also go and open the HT docs. So as you can see here, I have several folders that are holding the several PHP projects that I have created. So this is where you need to have your PHP script if it has to be executed. Now you can go right ahead and create your new project folder from this space here. But also, if you're using Visual Studio, it provides you with a way of being able to do that. So the work space that you're seeing here is basically this specific folder that is open. You'll notice that out here it is the HT docs, and you can also see the path. It is XAMPP HT docs. So for you to be able to open this, you just need to come and click add a workspace folder. So in this case, it will open the file explorer, and with the file explorer open, you can now go and select your HT docs folder. So when you just come and click on this and say add, what will happen is all those folders within that HT docs folder will be open here, and you're going to see all your folders here. So that's what I have already done because I've been using the program. So in this case now, what I need to do is to create a new folder within this workspace or within the HT docs folder, where we are going to have our starting PHP script. So I'm just going to come and click on a new folder, and you're going to see something like this open. Alternatively, I can also come on top here and I can just come and click on new folder. So this is what I like doing. This is because it is just going to allow me to create the folder just within the workspace. So maybe I can just come and call this exercise folder. So the folder has been created, and now what I need to do is to create my first file within this subfolder. So I'll just come and click on top here. So I have to make sure that the file is selected, and then on top here I just come and click new, and for this one I'm going to call it index.php. So index.php. Remember, the PHP is the extension for all the PHP files. So I'll just come and write that and then press enter, and what will happen is that now the Visual Studio Code will open the file automatically, and so I'll be presented with a blank space here. So now you can just go right ahead and write the PHP script inside here, but I would like to start with a HTML code. So in Visual Studio you can just write an exclamation mark and then hit on the tab if you want to have the basic HTML structure. So I'll just come and write an exclamation mark, hit tab, and I'll find the basic HTML structure there. So I can just come and change the title. So I'm just hoping that you do have some retro understanding of the HTML. So this is one of the prerequisite stuff that you need to get started with PHP. So I'll just come and write something here within the title, maybe just like PHP script. So like that. And now within the body, maybe I can just come and have a heading 2 there, and then now within this heading 2, maybe I can just come and write something like this is my first PHP script. So I can just write that, and now below that we are now going to have our first PHP script. And as I mentioned earlier, every PHP script should start with an opening PHP tag, and we write it like that, and it should also end with what we call a closing PHP tag, which we write like that. So question mark and the greater than sign. So now all the PHP script will go inside here. So I can even have it with a comment and say PHP script goes here. So it's always good to have comments in your code, as we have discussed earlier, because it will help someone else to understand your code, and as well as you, just in case you need to get back to the code and just try to understand what you are thinking when you are writing the code. So now inside here I can just come and write anything. So say for example I want to have some words displayed on a web browser using the PHP script. So we usually use the echo or the print. As I said, I'll be using echo a lot, so I'll just come and say echo, and in quotes I can just come and say I love coding in PHP. So you can write anything here, and also remember that all the PHP scripts or the statements should end with a semicolon, otherwise your code will not work. So that is the simplest PHP script that you can write, and now we can save that and see how that can be executed and displayed on a web browser. So I'll be heading to the Mozilla Firefox here, and now what I need to do on this is I need to access the path of the specific file. So the way to do that is within the address area here. Just come and write localhost. So in this case, you are referring to your local web server. So localhost, and then the name of the folder, which is exercise. So for this to work, you need to make sure that you have your web server started. In this case, I'm using the XAMPP. It is already started. If it's not started, of course, it will not work. See, now we have our heading here. So remember, this is HTML, but now what we have here is PHP. So I love coding in PHP, so this is as a result of the PHP. So let's say, for example, I come and make a deliberate mistake there, and I remove the semicolon, and I try to save the changes and refresh that, and you can see that will still work in this case, because this is just a simple PHP script. But for advanced cases, that will lead into a problem. You'll also notice, as I mentioned earlier, that the comment has not been displayed. This is because comments lines are not executed while executing the other PHP scripts. And that's how we write our first PHP script. This is just a basic stuff, so we'll be moving on to advance these specific lines. Comments lets others understand your code as well as remind yourself of what you did. A comment in PHP is a line that is not executed as part of the program. Its only purpose is to be read by someone who is looking at the code. Let's see how we code this on a text editor. So there are several ways of writing PHP comments, but one thing that you should make sure is that all your comments should be within the PHP opening and closing tags. So when you're writing PHP comments, you can be writing short comments or long comments. To write a short comment, we come and put a // and I can just come and say this is a short comment. You can also write a short comment with a hashtag, and this is also a short comment. So if you want to write a long comment, then what we do is that we start with a // then a *, and we can say this is a long comment. So it's always a good practice to have it like this, but even if you use this for a short comment, it will still work, but you cannot use this for a long comment. So for a long comment is a comment that will span to a paragraph or something, and that's how you write comments in PHP. And as we have said earlier, comments will help you to be able to get back to your code and understand what you were thinking when you're writing the code, and someone else can come to your code and also be able to understand what is going on within your code. When we talk of variables in PHP, we are basically talking about containers for storing information. To create a variable, you need to start with an ampersand sign followed by the name of the variable. Here are some rules that you have to follow while creating variables. 1. A variable starts with ampersand sign followed by the name of the variable. A variable name must start with a letter or the underscore character. A variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscores, that is A to Z, 0 to 9, and the underscore. It's worth to note, as mentioned earlier, that variable names are case sensitive. And to output variables, the echo statement is commonly used. However, you can still use the print statement. Let's see how we code this on a text editor. We already know by now that variables are used as containers to store information in PHP, and that for you to have a variable in PHP, you need to start it with an ampersand. And so let's assume that we want to store the words hello YouTube on a variable. How do we go about that in PHP? So you need to have your PHP opening and closing tags open, and then within that, what I've just done, I have included these comment. It's always good to have comments in your code so that you understand and someone else can understand what is going on in your code. And so to be able to write the variable, we can just come and have any name, but that name should start with an ampersand. And then for this one, I'm just going to call it a text, and I'm going to say is equals to the words that I want to store in the container or in the variable. So I'll just come and have some quotes, and then within that, I'm just going to come and write hello YouTube. And I should also not forget to end my PHP statement with a semicolon. And so now down here, if I want to print these words hello YouTube, I'll just come and say echo, and then I see the variable name, which is a text, and I should also add that statement with a semicolon. So save the changes and then head on to your browser and refresh that, and you should see the words hello YouTube. Let's say we want to store values on a variable, so we can just come and have a variable, maybe x, and then we say is equals to 6. And so now if we want to come and print this out, as usual, we just come and say echo variable x and add that with a semicolon. And when we refresh that, we should get 6. Maybe we can do one more, so maybe I come and say variable y is equals to 45.9 and with a semicolon, so I can echo that. So I say echo variable y, add that with a semicolon, and then refresh it, and that is what I should get there. And that's how we deal with variables in PHP. While coding the PHP, there are two ways to get output, that is echo and print. I like using echo, and so this tutorial will find me using echo a lot, but feel free to use print if that is what you would prefer. The reason as to why I say this is because echo and print are more or less the same. They are both used to output data to the screen. While using the echo statement, you can use it with or without the parentheses. Let's see how we code this on a text editor. I cannot emphasize enough on the how to use the echo and the print statements. This is because these are the two statements that you will use the most in your PHP code. And as we have said earlier, the echo and the print statements can be used together with variable names. So say for example you have created a variable called t, and this variable you've set it to equal to I love coding in PHP. So So you can be able to use either the print or the echo statement to print out these, or to be able to output this specific sentence. So here I can just come and say echo variable t. I add that with a semicolon, and I can also come and say, let me just create a break here. I can also come and create I can also come and have the print statement down here. So I can just come and say print variable t. I add that with a semicolon. So let me just come and say echo. You see, even when I want to echo the break, or when I want the break within my PHP, I can come and use the echo statement, where I can say echo into quotes BL, like that, and then I add that with a semicolon. So don't forget to have your PHP statements end with a semicolon. So now you can see in this case I've used the echo, and this will give me this specific sentence here, and this will just echo a break within or between this and this. So this output and this output will be the same. So here I want to just show you that the echo and the print are almost the same, and the difference cannot be cannot make that sense or that much sense for a beginner. So I'll just save that and head on to my browser and refresh that. And as you can see now, we have the two similar sentences. So remember, for this one we have used the print, and this one we have used the echo, and you can see both of them are doing one and the same thing, and we have a break in between the two. This is because we have echoed a break, and we can also come and say print, and that will be the same, so that will mean one and the same thing. PHP variable names can store data of different types, and different data types can do different things. Let us discuss the various data types supported by PHP. The first one is a string. A string in PHP is a sequence of characters like hello YouTube. The second data type supported by PHP is integer. When we talk of an integer in PHP, we are talking of a non-decimal number between -2 billion plus and +2 billion plus. We already know by now that you can be able to store a single value in a single variable in PHP. But you can also be able to store multiple values in one single variable in PHP, and this is what we call an array. In this example here, we have the variable fruits, and it is storing the values oranges, bananas, and watermelon. But for your variable to be able to store various values, then you have to come and have the variable name and say it is equal to array, and then into brackets or parentheses you come and have the multiple values that you want to store. This unlike before, where you're just writing the variable name and setting it is equal to whatever you want to store. So if you want to store different or multiple values in one variable, then in that case we usually use, or you are going to use, an array, and this is how we usually have it. So you write your variable is equals to array, then into brackets you come and have your multiple values. And then down here you can just come and call it like this. You say val underscore dump, and then into parentheses the variable. So if I save that and refresh, yes, so this is what I should have. So array 3, 0, string, oranges, bananas, and we have watermelon. So let's see if we come and use a print and see what will happen. So just come and say print the variable fruits, save that, and then I refresh, and you're going to see this error saying that array to string conversation are on line 18 array. So you cannot be able to use the print to echo an array. So let's see if the echo will work in this case. And we get the same error. So if you're working with an array and you want to echo the different values in that array, then we come and say var underscore dump, and then into parentheses the variable fruits. And that's how we write and echo or output the arrays in PHP. Null is one of the special data types in PHP which can have only one value, and that is null. A variable of data type null is a variable that has no value assigned to it. Let us see an example. So I'll create a variable x and I'll set it to equal to hello world. I'll create yet another variable x and I'll set it to equal to null, and I'll print it out here. So I'll say val underscore dump, and into parentheses I have the variable x. And now what we expect as a result of this PHP script is the word null. So let's see if that is the case. And as you can see here, we have the word null. So this is because we have the variable x set to null. As you can see here, we have the variable x being equal to null. What if we come and have this variable on top here? So if we have the variable x is equals to null being the first one, and we also have the variable x equal to hello world being the second string there, and then we come and refresh that, this is the result that you're going to get. So the PHP script will be able to read this, while in the first case it was just a good result. PHP if, else, and else if. Conditional statements are used to perform different actions based on a different condition. If you are required to perform different actions for different conditions in PHP, you can use conditional statements in your code. In PHP, we have the following conditional statements. If statement. The if statement executes some code if one condition is true. If else statement. The if else statement executes some code if a condition is true and another code if that condition is false. If else statement. The if else statement executes different codes for more than two conditions. And finally, we have the switch statement. The switch statement selects one of many blocks of code to be executed. So let's start with the if statement. The if statement, as I've mentioned, executes some code if one condition is true. Here is the syntax for the if statement. Let me show you an example that will help you understand the if statement. In this example, we have the value 20 and we are testing if it is greater than 100. So if it is greater than 100, we want PHP to echo less than 100. And so we say if into brackets 20 less than 100, and into curly brackets we write the code to be executed if the condition is true. The if else statement. The if else statement executes some code if a condition is true and another code if that condition is false. Here is the syntax for the if else statement. As you can see, we have the if and we have the condition into brackets, and into curly brackets we have the code to be executed if the condition is true. Else, we want to execute another code, or else we want to have another statement to be printed out if the statement is false. To make the video short and precise, I have already created all the HTML work that will be requiring for the login system. And what we are currently seeing here is the landing page, which has nothing else apart from the nice image that you can see here, some text, and a button. Upon clicking this button, a person is taken to the login screen. This is where they are going to put in their username and password and then sign in. Right now, nothing will happen as I have not added any PHP. If a person has not yet registered, I have provided also a registration form. So upon clicking on the registration form, a person is taken to this page where they can be able to put in the username, password, and also confirm their passwords and then register. Again, right now it is not working as I have not provided any PHP. To get back to home, you can click on that. So that is all the HTML work that we have, and now what I need to do is to make it functional or add PHP so that all that is working as we would expect. So the first thing that I would want us to do is to create a database where we'll be storing the information for the users. So I'll create a new tab here, and then I'll go to the PHP My Admin page. So this one will take me to the database, and here I want to create a database. And to be able to create a database, I'll just head on to this pane on your left and then click on New. So this will help you to create a new database, and then here you require to give it a name. So I'll just come and call it login underscore system. And then you need to make sure that it has this the UT blah 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 general underscore CI. So you can click on the drop down and choose it if it is not selected by default. And then after that you just come and create. So this will create a database, and now what you need to do is to add some tables on it. So the table that I'm going to create here, I'm just going to come and call it users, and right now we can just have it with 4 columns. So I'll just come and click go. Now within our table we are going to add the field names. So the first one of course will be the ID. It should be of the type int, and we also need to make sure that the ID is auto increment, because we want, when we continue adding users, we want the IDs to be numbered automatically. So from number 1, 2, 3, 4, going like that. So we need to come and check this button. So this will mean that the records, as they are added, they will be numbered automatically in an increasing manner. And then also upon checking on that button, it will also add a primary key on that specific field, so to mean it will be a unique field. So from there now we are going to add the next field name, which will be username. So for the username, I'm going to give it a type of Vasha. And just before I forget, the length for the ID, I'm going to give it 10. So you should not leave this blank. And for the username, I'll give it maybe 100. And I'll also have a password. So for the password, again, I'll give it the type of Vasha, and also the length will be 100 values. So just a recap, we've just added some field names here. So the first one was ID, and we have checked the auto increment button, so that the records can be numbered in an increasing manner. And I've also added the primary key on the same field, that is the ID, and I've given it the length of 10 values and type of integer, username, and then the type of Vasha and 100 values, password, Vasha type, and 100 values. So when you finish that, now you can just come down here and click go, or save rather, save. So now as you can see, we have successfully created the table, and the ID has a primary key and it is auto increment. Always ensure that this one is like that. You can give it a different name, but ensure that it has the primary key and auto increment. So we have successfully created the database, and now we can head on to the text editor and start creating our PHP. So let me just head on to my text editor, which is Visual Studio Code, and here I am on the Reading page, or the index.php, and I don't think there's anything that I need to do here. So I'll go ahead and click the login .php. So this is the code for the login.php. This is just the HTML work, but what we are going to do, we are going to start with the registration, because there's no way that you are going to log in if you have not registered. So we'll first of all work on the registration form, and then we are now going to get back to the login. So this is the registration form, as you can see, and my hope is that you can be able to create a registration form in HTML, and this is what you are going to have. So one of the first things that you need to ensure that you have done is that within the form, you need to make sure that it has an action and it has a method of post. So make sure that your form has the method, and the method should be post, and should also have action. And here we are now going to put the path where we are going to have the PHP. If we have it in this page, we're just going to leave it like that. But if we have it in another location, we're going to write that path in this location here. So we'll be doing that practically so that you can understand what I mean. So the other thing that you also need to make sure that you have in your form is that in the input field, we want to make sure that we have the attribute name. So we are going to put a name, and then we are going to have the name with whatever information or data we are collecting from that input. So we already know that the first thing that we need to correct from the user is the username. I'm just heading on to the registration form here, and what we need to do first is to pick whatever name that is entered in this field username. So to be able to do that using PHP, we need to add this. We need to add the name in the input field. So in the name, we're going to come and say username, and make sure that this name that you're going to put here matches the name that you used or you entered in your database. Remember, as we were creating the database, we had the fields username and password. So we need to also have them here as well. So it's not a must, but just make sure that they are matching just to avoid any errors. So I'll also go to the input password, and I'll also have it with a name. And the name now will be password. Remember, now we want to correct the password or to fetch the password of the user here. So we are going to come and have the name password there like that, and we're also going to go to the confirm password input field and also have it with a name, and for this one its name will be confirm password. So if that is not done, then your PHP will not work. So make sure that in your form you have it with this action. This attribute action should also have the method post, and in your inputs ensure that you have the name, and within the name you can have the username. And then for the password also you can have the name, and the name should be password, and also the confirm password should have the name, and the name should be confirm password. So in this case actually we can just come and have it with an underscore there. So we are going to see the reason as to why we have placed an underscore in between confirm and password. Finally, we also need to have the button, of course, and the button should also have a name, and the name should be submit. If this is not the case, then your PHP will not work. So ensure that your button has a name, and the name should be submit. So that is all the HTML that we require, and so now we can get started with the PHP. So what I've done, I've created a folder within our project folder, which I'm calling sample website. So within the sample website, I've created a subfolder called includes. So this is the folder within which we are going to have all our PHP work. So I'm going to click on that subfolder, and I'm going to create a new file, and the new file I'm going to call it con.php. Why? This is because I want to first of all connect to the database. So the first thing that I want to do is to connect to the database. So within the includes folder, I've created a file called con.php. So now here I'm going to write the PHP code that will help me to connect to the database. And I'm going to say params to connect to the database. So the first parameter will be database host. So I'm going to put $, then I'll say db host, and I'm going to set that to equals to double quotes localhost. And then the next parameter will be a user, db user. So I'm going to say db user, and that will be equal to double quotes root. So the next parameter will be db password. So I'm going to say $db pass, and that should be equal to nothing. This is because I have no password to connect to my localhost. So if you have provided a password, then you need to make sure that you have this password here. So in my case, to be able to access the database, I have not assigned it any password, so I'm just going to leave it blank. If you have a password to access your database, then you need to make sure that you put that password there. So the last will be db name. So that is the database name, and as you can remember, we created a database, and we called the database, or we named the database as login system. So that is what we are going to have here. So that is the login underscore system, and you should always make sure that you end all your PHP statements with a semicolon, otherwise you're going to have errors. Alright, so having said that, then we can continue to the next, and the next thing that I want to do is now to connect to the database. So I'm going to come and have a comment here, and I'm just going to say connect to database. And so here I'm going to have a variable con, and this is a variable that we are going to use a lot in all the areas where we'll be requiring to connect to the database. And so this variable, I'm going to set it to mysqli. So I'm going to say mysqli. So the mysqli is just means that this is MySQL improved. MySQL improved. So if you just write MySQL, then you'll be using the old version of MySQL. But when you include the I, then it means that you're using the MySQL improved. So I'm going to say MySQL connect, and then that will have the following parameters. The first one is what we have on top here, that is a db host. So make sure you just have them as you load them on top here, otherwise you're going to have errors in your code. So the first one will be a db host followed by a db user, followed by db password, and finally we have db name. Then the last thing we want to see we want to do here is we want to know if there is a problem. We want to be notified of that specific problem, or rather if the connection cannot be made, we want to be told that the connection cannot go through. So in that case, I'm going to use the if. So I'm going to say if, and I'm going to say if the connection doesn't happen. So in that case, I'm going to start with an exclamation mark. So I'm going to start with an exclamation mark. So that means if the connection does not happen, so I'm going to say exclamation mark a variable con. So if that does not happen, then I'm just going to say die, and it should return the error database connection failed, or you can have any message here. So just like that. So this is all the PHP that we require to connect to our database. So let us save that and test to see if we have any errors. Make sure you save everything. So now we have finished all the PHP that will help us to connect to the database, and the first thing that I want to do before I continue is to test whether we have any error on our PHP code. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to head on to my browser here, and I want to access that specific file. So I'm just going to come and say con.php. Sorry, I also need to have the subfolder includes. And as you can see, we have nothing here. That means we don't have any error on our code. So if we come and make a deliberate mistake here, for example, I just come and remove the underscore here, and then I save that. So and then I come and refresh my website. So you're now going to see that I'm going to have this error that is telling me that data connection failed, and there is an unknown database login system. So let me just come and fix that. So I'm going to include the underscore and save that, and then I'll refresh, and now you can see we don't have any error. So that means we are successfully connecting to the database. Well, now what I want to do is to add some functionality to our registration form. This is by adding some PHP code. So to do that, I'm going to head on to my Visual Studio Code, that is my text editor, and this is our register.php. Remember, this is a pure HTML, and we want to add the functionality that will help us to collect information and send it to the database. So to be able to do that, I'm going to have the PHP code in a separate folder, which I think is a good practice, and I always like doing that. So to help us in that, I have created a subfolder within the main project folder, which I named sample website. So I have a subfolder within it called includes. So it is now within the includes. As you can remember that we placed the con.php, and it is within the same folder that we are going to have the other PHP codes. So I'm going to click the include subfolder and create a new file, and I'll call it register_inc.php. So now here we're going to have that PHP code that will collect information from the form, verified and send it to the database. So I'm going to come and have the opening and closing PHP tags. And now within this, I'm now going to have the PHP code. And the first thing that I always want to do is to test whether the user has clicked the submit button. And to do this, I will use the if statement, and the condition will be is set the post method. Remember, we are using the post method to pass information, and the post method is always used when you want to pass information via or through a form. So that is the method that I'm going to come and have here. So I'm going to put a $sign and then underscore and the word post in capital letters. And remember, we want to test whether the submit button was clicked. So I'm going to have these brackets here and some double quotes, and within that I'm going to come and have the name submit. So it is within the if statement that I'll come and echo clicked if the button was clicked and it is working successfully. Else, if the button is not working or it was not clicked, I'm going to come and echo not clicked. So I'll save that and test whether my code is working. So I'll put some dummy data here. And one more thing that we need to do is, you can see it is not working there. One more thing that we need to do is we need to head on to the register.php, and at the action we need to add the path to the register_inc.php. So I'm going to come and say includes /register_inc.php. Then I save that, and then now I can just come refresh that. So let me just come and double click that and hit enter. I put some random data here and click register, and as you can see I get the clicked. That means the button is working. But if there is a problem with the button or the button was never clicked, so this is what we are going to get. So I will head on back here, I will refresh it, put some dummy data, and then I click register, and we are going to see not clicked. That means the button is not working. So I'm going to fix that so that we can continue. So fix that and save it. Then we head on back to the register_inc.php, and here I'm just going to come and remove the else, and maybe I can just come and comment this out just in case we need it later. So now the second thing that we need to do is we need to connect to our database. So here I'm just going to come and have a comment and say connect to a database, and I'm just going to come and include the call.php that will help us to connect to the database. So instead of writing the code all over again, so I'm just going to come and say require So I just come and write the path where the con.php is, which is includes /con.php. form.php, and that will have us connect to the database. So if we successfully connect to the database, then now we can start collecting the information from the form. So remember, in the form we want to collect the username, we want to collect the password and the confirm password that the user has provided. So to be able to collect that, we're going to come and have a $sign here, username, and we are going to set that to host, and then username, and don't forget to close that PHP statement, else it will not work. So to save time, I can just come and copy this, and then I paste it down here, and then I'll change this to password, as well as this to password, and the last one will be confirm password, confirm underscore password. Remember, you should have these just the way you wrote them in the form. So this one and what you also write here should be the same, otherwise you're going to have an error. So just like that. So that will have us collecting the information from the user, and if you want to test if that is working, then you can just come and add echo here, and then save that, head on to your browser. We can put some dummy data here again, and click register, and seems like we have a problem. We cannot connect to the con.php, so we need to see how we can fix that. Oh, sorry, we don't need to have the includes folder, because the register underscore inc.php and the con.php are within the same folder, that is the includes subfolder. So we don't need to have that in our path. So let us save that, and now we can refresh. Just come and click that. Put some dummy data again here, click register. Yes, and now what you're going to see here is that we are collecting the username that has been provided by the user, and it means our code is working. So far so good. So it's always good to do this test, so that if there is any problem, you're just going to have that problem fixed just before you write a lot of code. So now after doing all that, we now need to verify this information. We need to ensure that the user enters the correct information in the form that we want them to have the information in. So here I can just come and put a comment and say check errors, or let me just come and say error handlers. So this now where we'll start checking for errors from the data provided by the user. And the first thing that we're going to check is if the form is empty. We're going to check if the user just clicked the submit button without providing any data. So we're just going to come and have another if statement here, and we are going to come and say if empty the variable username, but this again should be within another bracket. So open and close bracket, and within that now you're going to come and have the username that has been provided by the user. So if there is nothing, the if statement will tell us that. So we're just going to come and say username, and then outside that we're going to come and put these two lines here. And again we'll test if the password field is empty again. So I'm going to say empty, open and close brackets, and here I'm going to come and have a password, and again we want to check if the confirm password field is empty. So the first error that we'll check is if the user clicked the submit button without filling all the required information. And to be able to do that, I'm going to use the if statement to check if the user has filled all the field names. So I'm going to come and say if, and condition will be empty, open and close bracket, the username. So I'm going to come and have the variable username, and then outside that I'm going to come and have these two lines, and I'm also going to check the password field whether it is empty. So again I'll say empty, open and close brackets. Within that I'm going to come and have $ password. And finally, I need to check the confirm password field if it has been filled. So I'm again going to come and say empty, open and close brackets, $ confirm underscore password. So if the fields are empty, I want to echo an error through the URL. So if the fields are empty, I want to echo an error through the URL. And so here I'm going to come and have a header, open and close brackets. Again within the brackets I'm going to have the opening and closing quotes. And here I'm going to come and say location, and location will be register. So I'll be taking the person on to the registration form, and to of course to be able to pull the information again. So I'll be taking the user back to the registration form with an error on the URL. So I'm just going to come and say get out of the include folder, and there you're going to get the register .php, and the error will be equal to empty fields. And I may also want to return the username. It may happen that maybe the user has only filled the username but forgot to fill the password, or filled the username and the password and forgot to fill the confirm password. So I want to just save the time of the user so that they don't have to fill the username again. So if they had filled it in the first time but there was an error, I want to save their time by returning the username that they had provided, so that they only have to put the fields that were empty. So to be able to do that here, I'm going to come and add ampersand,
username, and that will be equal to, I get out of the code, I put a period, and then I come and put the variable username. So after that, I don't want the user to do anything else. So if there is a problem, I don't want the code to continue. So what I'll do is that I'll just come and say exit to terminate or to exit the code. So I'll just come and say exit, and then of course I add that statement with the semicolon. So if the user has filled all the field names correctly, I want to take the information and check if all the information provided is valid. So down here I'm just going to come and say maybe I put a comment and say check for invalid fields. And so down here I'm just going to come and say else if, and for this so for the else if condition I'm just going to come and say plague match. So I'm going to start with an exclamation mark because I'm checking if they are invalid fields. So I'm going to start with an exclamation mark, and then I say plague underscore match, and what I want the user to fill is these characters. So opening and closing quotes, / that symbol there, those opening and closing square brackets as well, A to Z in small letters, and A to Z again, but this time loud in capital letters, 0 all through to 9, the asterisk and the /. So these are the only characters the user is allowed to have in a username. Otherwise it will return an error and the user will not be proceeding on to register. So now within here I'm just going to again echo an error through the URL. So again I'll just come and say header, open close brackets, double quotes, then location, and the location will be get out of the includes, then register .php, and the error will be invalid fields. I also want to return that specific username that the user has provided. So again I'm going to come and put the ampersand and then username, get out of the quote, period, and the variable username. So let me know in the comments below if you guys are getting this, and if you're not getting this, then you can just point out where you're not understanding, or in which point or part that was not clear, so that I can be able to explain it in simple terms. So what we've just done here is to check if the user has provided the correct information using what we call the plague match, and we started that with an exclamation mark, and we are checking if the user has provided the username using these specific characters here, and we want to check if the user has not provided the username using these characters, and that's why we are starting the plague match with an exclamation mark. So if we remove the exclamation mark, then we'll not be checking if the user has provided the username using these characters, but having the exclamation mark there, as I've said, will test if the user has the username using the characters that we have in this specific area there. So hoping that is clear, then we can move on to the next step, And the next step here is now to check if the password match or not. Remember, we want the user to provide your password and also provide it once more. So if the first and the second password do not match, we don't want the user to continue with the registration. We want the user to provide or to make sure that the two passwords are matching. So to be able to do that, so what I'm just going to do here, and just before I forget, we also have to exit this as well. So exit that. So if there is an error, we don't want the user to or the code to continue. We want it to exit immediately and return the user back with an error. So so I'm going to come and have a comment here. So I'm just putting comments so that you guys can understand every step. So now here what we want to do is we want to check if the password match. And again, we're going to use the if statement. So we're going to use the if statement a lot here. So we're going to come and say else if. So else if, and the condition will be variable password does not equal to. So again, we're going to start this with an exclamation mark and then equal to. So we want to check if the password is not matching. So if the first password provided is not matching with the second provided password. So if we don't put the exclamation mark, again we will not be testing if the two passwords are matching. So this kind of means that it is not equal to. So the first and the second password is not equal to. So we're going to say $sign password is not equal to confirm underscore password. So if the password again does not match or do not match, again we are going to have the user going back to the registration form, and here we are going to return the user with the error password do not match. And we also want to have his username, so we're going to say and username, and then period $username or the variable username. And as usual, we exit that, close it like that.
Oh, well, the next thing that we want to do is to check if the username is taken, and the best way to do this is to connect to our database, select all the usernames in the database and match them with the username provided by the user, and if there exists a match, then we will tell the user that the username is taken, else we'll let the user continue with the registration process. So to do this, down here first I will come and have a comment, and this will be check if the username is taken or not. So down here I'm going to come and say else, and I'm going to come and create a variable SQL, and this will help me to select username from the users. So I'll just come and say select username from users where username
is equals to question mark. So I'm just going to come and have the question mark there. And now down here I'm going to come and have another variable. So the variable statement, so I'll say $stmt, and this one will be equal to my SQLi statement initialization with the parameter con. So I'm going to come and say my SQLi underscore stmt underscore int, and this will have the variable con. So this basically connects us to the database. So now before I continue, I would like to check if the two statements are working. That is, if I can be able to select username from the users, and if I'm able to successfully connect to the database. So to do that, I'm going to come and say if, and the condition will be exclamation mark my SQLi underscore stmt underscore prepare, and this will have the parameter stmt as well as the SQL. So this is basically checking if the two are working, and if they are not working, that's why I've started this with an exclamation mark. We are going to return an error on the URL. So I'll say header, and the location will be back to the registration form. So register.php, and the error will be username taken. And we also want to return that username, so we'll say ampersand username, and then we'll put a period here, and then we'll say the variable username. And of course we're going to exit that. So now we're still in the process of checking if the username is taken or not. So here what we are basically doing is to check if the two statements are working, that is before we continue. And sorry, instead of having the error username taken here, so what we are going to have here instead is SQL error. So I'll say is equals to SQL error. So I'm going to come and close that there. So alright, so the next thing that now we want to check is the next thing that we want to do now is to bind the results. So that is if these two statements were successful, we want now to come and continue. Remember, if they are not successful, then we are going to return an error. So if that is done successfully, so I'm just going to come and say else. So MySQLi underscore stmt underscore byte underscore param, and the two will have the variable stmt, and here I want to just come and pick or byte the username. So I'm just going to come and have that single s input, and I'm going to provide the actual username here. So I'll say the variable username, And then after that, I'm also going to come and say MySQLi statement execute. So I'll say MySQLi underscore stmt. So this basically is executing that. So underscore execute, and this will have the variable stmt. So I also want to store those results, so I'll again come and say MySQLi underscore stmt underscore store underscore results. So that should be result and not results, and that will again have the variable stmt. So now that we are successfully connecting to the database and we have binded the results, executed them and stored them, we now want to come and count the number of rows. So I'm going to come and create a variable called row count, and that will be equal to MySQLi underscore stmt underscore num underscore rows. So say MySQLi, so MySQLi underscore stmt underscore num for numbers and underscore rows. So this is basically counting the rows in our users table. So this will have the variable the stmt, so that is the statement. And so now after counting, I want to know if the rows are greater than 0. So I'm going to come and use an if statement again, and the condition will be the variable row count that we have on top there, and I'm going to say if it is greater than 0. And so if it is greater than 0, this will mean that the username is taken, otherwise it will mean the username is not taken. So I'm going to come and send the user back to the registration form, and on the URL I'm going to return the error. This is if the username is taken. So if it is not taken, then the user will continue with the registration process. So I'm going to come and say header, and the location will be our registration form. So register.php, and the error will be now username taken, and I will now also return that specific username. So period $sign username. So we're moving on so well. So finally here I'll just come and exit. So I want to take you slowly step by step, so that you can be able to understand each and every step. So now that is all the code that we need to check if the username exists or not. So remember, we first of all created a variable that would help us to select all the usernames from the users, where the username is question mark, and we also created a statement, and this was helping us to connect to the database. And here we checked if the two are working, and it is only when they were working that we proceeded on to this where we divided, executed and stored the results. We have also counted the rows, and we are saying if the number of rows are greater than 0, this will mean the username is taken, otherwise the username is not taken. So now we're going to proceed on, and if all that is done, now we can insert the data into the database. So I'm going to come in just before I continue here, I create a comment and say insert data into the database. So insert the data into the database. So I'm going to come here and say else. I create a variable SQL again, and this one I'll set it to equal to insert into users. So this should be in capital letters, so insert into users, and what we are inserting is the username as well as the password, and the values will be question mark. Again, we don't want to echo the actual values, so I'm going to come and say question mark. So now after inserting the records, so here we are going to come and have another variable stmet, so that is the statement, and we're just initializing the statement here. So I'm going to come and say mysqli underscore stmet underscore int. So this should be int, and it will have the parameter con. So basically again we're just connecting to the database there. So before we proceed, we want to check if the two statements are working properly, that is if we can successfully connect to the database and if the data can be inserted onto the users table. So to do that, we're going to create an if statement, and we're going to have it with the condition exclamation mark mysqli underscore stmet, so stmet underscore prepare, and this will have the variable stmet comma and the variable sql. So if the two or any of the two is not working, then we want to echo an error on the URL. So, and this is just like what we had on top here when we were selecting the username from the users. So to save time, I can just come and pick that. So this will just echo or print an SQL error on the URL. So that is if we cannot be able to insert data into the database, and if we cannot be able to connect to the database. Now the last thing that we want to do is we want to insert the password provided by the user in a hashed manner. So we don't want to insert it in the raw form that the user will have provided it. So we want to hash the password first, and then we insert it onto the database. So here I'm going to come and create a comment and say create hashed password. And to be able to do that, I'm going to come and say else, and I'm going to create a variable called hashed password or hashed pass rather. Let me just come and say hashed pass, and I'll set this to equals to password underscore hash, and this will have the parameters password, so the password variable, as well as password underscore default. So this is a method to hash the password. So I'm going to come and have that in capital letter, and it will be password underscore default. So I'm going to come in again, bite that down here. So I'm going to come and say MySQLi underscore stmt underscore byte and underscore param, and that statement will have the variable or the parameters stmt, because that's what I'm binding here. And in this case, I want to bind both the username and the hashed password. So I'm going to come and have in quotes SS, so that is to mean the username and the password. And so here I'm going to come and say the variable username as well as the variable hashed password. So after that, I'm just going to come and execute that. So I'm going to come and say MySQLi stmt underscore execute, and I'm executing the variable statement. And if that works properly, so here we should have underscore. And if all that is working properly, now we can redirect the user to the next page. Maybe we can take the user to the login page or direct to the running page. So in my case, I'm going to redirect the user into the login page so that now the user can be able to log in. So I'm going to again come and say handler, and the location will be login.php, and this will have not an error but this time loud success. So this is to mean that the user has successfully registered. So success and success will be equal to registered. So that is all that we need to create the registration form. So that is all the PHP that we need. So now I just want to go through my code here just before we go to the browser and test it. So yes, so this should be username. So make sure that you don't have any typos. Alright, so this one should also be confirm password, and reg match. We should also come here and provide the variable username, So we save that, and I think everything is working so well. Make sure that all your PHP statements ends with a semicolon, otherwise the whole registration system will not work. Alright, and I think we are good to go, so I can just head on to my browser here, and I want to come and refresh this. Alright, and we're going to come and put our username, so I'll say John M, and the password will be 123, and I confirm the password down here again 123, and then I say register, and we do have a problem in line 35, so let's see how we can collect that error. So on our register _inc, so we want to see that error, so that is 35. Oh sorry, here we should have a comma. Yes, and now we can refresh that and repeat it again. So 1 2 3. So sorry, the error is still not fixed. Sorry, we also need another comma here. So if we refresh that, we also have another error on line 38, so let's try and see where the problem is. So it says call to undefined function MySQLi number loss. So again here there is another typo, so some simple spelling mistakes here, so we need to have an S again there, so it should be MySQLi underscore stmet underscore num underscore lows and not low. So let's try and see if that fixes the problem that we are having here. So back to our database, and just need to refresh this. So 1 2 3 1 2 3. And on line 53 we also have yet another problem, line 53. So we're almost there. So MySQLi, so this is a undefined function MySQLi statement. So there is another typo here, so I included an S which should not be there, so it should be MySQLi and not MS or QLI. So so that's another typo there, so that is fixed. So we go back and refresh, and we put in the information now, then we click register, and we are now going to come and have the success, and we are taken to the login page. So this is to mean that we have successfully registered. So we can now head on to the database, and see if the information that was provided has been inserted into the database. So I'm going to come and click the login system users, and here I'm just going to come and say browse. So it is loading that. Yes, and as you can see, the information provided by the user has been inserted. So the username is John M, and the password was also hashed, as you can see here. So just make sure that you avoid the typos, and of course in all cases you're going to find that you'll make those simple silly mistakes. So the only thing that you need to make sure is that you are able to go through your code and identify those errors and be able to fix them. So because I can see the video is getting quite long here, what I want to do is I want to separate this video into two sections. So we're going to have the episode 1, where we have just created the registration form, and in the second episode I'll now be showing you how you can create the login script that will now help the users to log in into into your website. So hope that was helpful. So see you in the next one.
Hey, what's up? Glad that you're still watching. Now, to create the login script, all I need to do here is to head on to my includes a subfolder, and here I'm going to create a file, and I'll call it login_inc.php. So now here I'm going to come and open the PHP tag and also close it down there, and now I'm going to have all the PHP wrapped within this. So the first thing that I need to do is to check if the submit button was clicked. So that's good practice. So to do that, I'll just come and write a comment and say check if the submit button was clicked or not. And now to check if the submit button was clicked, we can use the if statement just like we did with the registration script. So I'm going to come and say if, and the condition will be is set, and because we are passing information via form, we can come and have the post method here. So I come and say in brackets $_ in capital letters post, like that. And because we are checking if the submit button was clicked, I'm going to come and also have submit here, like that. Now if the button was successfully clicked, we are going to echo a certain line of we are going to echo a certain word or sentence. Else, if the button was not clicked or it is not working, we are going to echo something else. So if the button is successfully clicked, we're going to come and echo clicked. And if the button was not clicked, we're going to come and say else echo not clicked. So now we can save that. Now the next thing that we need to ensure is that the two login.php and the login_inc.php are linked. So to do that, I'm going to head on back to the login.php, and I'm going to go to the form action, and within the quote I'm going to write the path to this page, the login_inc.php. And as you can see, the login_inc.php file is within the includes folder. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to come and say includes
/login_inc.php. So that now will have the two linked together, so that now when I click the submit button, I will be taken to the login_inc.php. So I save that, and now what I want to do is to test if the submit button is working. So I'll come here and I'll refresh this page, and I'll just come here and put some dummy data, and then I say sign in, and here we are going to see clicked. So it means the button is working successfully. So what if maybe there is a problem? Say for example we come and maybe add something like that there, and then we save, we come refresh our page, we put some dummy data there, and then click sign in, and here we are going to see not clicked. So that is the best way of testing if the submit button is working, because if it is not working, your code will have problems. So now if that is working, then we can continue with the login script. So I can just come and comment that out. So the next thing that I want to do here is, if the person tries to access the home page or the index.php or HTML page without providing the login credentials, we want to tell that person that access is forbidden, or we want to echo an error, because a hacker or any person may try to bypass the login system or the login part. So I'm going to come and say else, and here I'm going to have the error in the URL. So I'm going to come and say header, and the location will be a login. So I'll just come and move or step back one folder back, and I'll come and say login.php, and I want this to return an error. So I'll have question mark error is equals to, so I'll just come and say access forbidden, something like that. So if the person tries to bypass this, tries to not filling the required information, then there will be this error here. Alright, so now we can now come inside here and continue with the login script. And now I want to come and connect to the database. And what I'll just do to connect to the database, I'll just come and require the con.php. Remember, that's where we have our data connection or database connection rather. So just come and say con.php. So remember, we have the con.php here where we are connecting to the database. So I can maybe also come and have a comment here and say connect to the database. So the next thing that I want to do is to collect data from the form. So I'll first of all come and have a comment here and say collect data from the form. So to collect the data, we're just going to come and have the variable username, which is equals to, remember we are using the post method, so I'm just going to come and say post, and what we want to collect is the username, and the next is the password. So we're going to come and have a variable password. So we just come and say password. So we are basically now collecting the information from the form and storing them in this variable. So the username and the post. So I'm just going to come and say password here. Sorry, this should be small letter. So password. So now we have corrected the username and the password, and we have stored that in the variable username and password respectively. Now before we continue, we may also want to check if the fields are empty, if the user has filled all the required field names. So I'm going to come and have a comment here and say check if the fields are empty. So now to check if the field names are empty, we are again going to use an if statement. So I'm just going to come and say if, and the condition will be empty. And what is empty? It is the username all. So I'm going to come and have the two lines all password. So we're going to say empty if also the password is empty. So we say password. And if username or password is empty, we want to echo an error. So this will be, of course, in the URL. So here I'm going to come and say header, and the location will be login.php. So I'm going to step out of the includes folder, and then I say login.php, and the error will be equal to empty fields. Now what we want to do is to check if the password provided by the user matches the hashed password that we have in the database. So I'm going to come and have a comment here and say check, just come and say check if the password provided matches what we have in the database. So now to be able to do that, we're going to create a variable called SQL, and this will help us to collect all the information that we have in the users table or in the database. So I'm just going to come and say select all where username is equals to question mark. So we are setting this to question mark because we'll be binding this information later. So I'm going to put a question mark there, and now below here we are going to initialize the statement. So I'm going to come and have another variable, the variable stmet, so that is statement, and I'm going to come and say mysqli underscore stmet underscore int, and this one will have the parameter call. So now before I continue, I want to check if I can be able to correct information from the database, and here we also have to come and say where and here we need to fix this. So this should be select all from, it is from users. Yes, so it should be select all from users where username is equals to question mark. Yes, and then of course now we have this, and now down here we want to check if we are getting anything from the database. So if you are not getting anything, or if these two statements are not working, then we want to have an error. We want to return an error to the user. So to be able to do that, we're going to use the if statement. So I'll say if, and the condition will be exclamation mark, because we want to check if this is not working. So that's why we are starting with an exclamation mark. So if mysqli underscore stmet underscore prepare, and this will have the parameters stmet, because that's what we are checking if it is working, as well as the SQL. SQL. So if it is not working, then you want to echo an error in the URL. So here I'm going to come and say header, and the header location will be the login.php. So I'm going to get out of the includes folder, and then I say login.php, and the error will be equal to SQL error. And of course, don't forget to exit that. So if it is not working, we don't want to do anything beyond that. So we want to come and exit that. That means also here, we also need to make sure that we also have the exit as well. That is because we don't want to run any other code below that. So now after that, we're also going to come and say else. So if we don't have a problem and we're able to correct everything, we want to come and say else. And here we want to come and bind the results. So I'm going to come and say mysqli underscore stmet underscore bind underscore param. So now we want to come and match the password that we have in the database with the password that the user has provided. We bind them together. So this one will have the parameter stmet, and we're also going to have s, because here we are binding a statement, so we say s. And basically now what we are doing here, we are matching the username with the password. We are binding the username and the password. So what we want to bind here is the username, and that's why we have the s, and we're going to come and also have the variable username there. So we are binding the username with the password, matching them together. Alright, so now after that, we can now come and say, we can now come and execute that. So I'm just going to come and say mysqli underscore stmet underscore execute, and we are executing the variable stmet. So I'll say stmet, and I'll close that. And then now we want to get the results and store them in a variable called results, so from the database. So I'm going to come and create a variable, call it results, and I'm going to set this to equal to mysql underscore stmet underscore get underscore result, and this should be a result and not a result, and this will have the parameter stmet. Then we can close that. Now down here we are going to use an if statement to check if the password is true or false. So if the pass check is true or false, so we're going to come and say if, and the condition will be variable pass check, a variable pass check is equals false. So if it is equals to false, then it will mean that the user has provided the wrong password. But if the information that the user has provided does not match anything in the database, we want to come and tell the user that no such user exists. So we are going to come and say else down here, else, and you're going to come and say header, and this will be a location, the login .php, and the error will be no user, so it will be equal to no user. So that is in case we don't have a user, or the records provided by the user do not match what we have in the database, or there is no match. So but if the user provides maybe a wrong password, but there is a user, so we're going to come and say inside the if statement, you're going to come and say header, and we're going to take the person back to the login page, so login.php, and the error will be equal to wrong password. So if the pass check is equals false, then that will mean that the user has pressed or provided the wrong password. Else if, so we're going to come and say else if down here, and the condition will be if the pass check is equals true, then here we are now going to log in the user. So now, but before we log in the user, we're going to start a session here. So I'm just going to come and say a session underscore start, and what we want to grab using the session is the session ID and the session username. So I'm going to come and say session, and the first will be a session ID, which will be equal to a row ID, so remember we've already fetched the information from the database, so we are now echoing back there, as well as the session ID, session user. So I'm going to come and say session user here, and that will be equal to row user. So here we should also have an equals as well, and we should also close that there. So now after that, now we can redirect the user to the index.php. So we're going to come and say location, and the location will be index.php, and this will now be not an error but a success, which will be equal to wrong. So now that is all the login script that we needed to write. So we now need to go through our code one more time. So we first of all checked if the button was clicked. We corrected the data from the form as supplied by the user. We also checked if the username and the password are empty, and here we are matching the password and the username provided by the user with what we have in the database by selecting what we have or grabbing what we have in the database here. And down here we are verifying if the password provided matches what we have in the database. So else we will have long password, and if the matches, which is pass check is equals to true, we are starting a session here, and we are grabbing the session ID and the session user, and then redirecting the user now to the index.php, with a success message, log in. Alright, so let us save that and now try to come and log in here and see if our login script has any errors. So I can just come and put the password. So I want to come first, maybe verify the username and the password that we have in the database. So I'm heading on to the PHP my admin, that is my database. Yes, and the username is John M, and the password is already hashed. So I'll get back here and then I'll say John M and the password is 123. Then I just come and sign in, and we have a problem somewhere on line 28. So let's see how we fix that on line 28. Sorry, we need to have a comma here. So we save that and refresh. So we refresh that and then I put the information again. And we also have another problem on line 35. So we fix that again. Oh, sorry, some spelling mistakes here. Just forgot a semicolon there. So we need again to check that. We forgot also to put another semicolon on this line here. So these are some minor but stupid mistakes that someone would make. So ensure that you have that fixed. So getting back here to refresh it again, and we have another on line 23. It seems they are getting too much. Sorry, there was a typo here. This should be my SQLi. I think that's correct. So so let me refresh that again. Oh, sorry. Looks like I was typing so fast here, guys. So refresh that. Oh, it's not getting too much. Alright, so this is also an opportunity to as well learn how you can be able to fix the problems. So always make the mistakes, but it's always good to know how you can fix them. Oh, sorry, we made a mistake here. So this should be MySQLi underscore fetch underscore sock. So this was supposed to be MySQLi underscore fetch underscore sock. So like that, and this should be equal to the result, that the variable result that we have here. Good. So now we can save that, and then we come and say John M, and then 1, 2, 3, then we log in, and we are taken out to the login page. So we can come and try maybe to put a long password. So maybe I say John M, and then I say 436, sign in, and then it tells me that I have a long password. And that's how you can simply create a login script in PHP. And of course, you'll always have those minor silly mistakes, but we learn from the mistakes. So when you make the mistakes, you become better. So I thought that it is not best that I just have something clean, because that is not what you'll actually see on your site. You'll have these simple mistakes, and it's always good to know how you can be able to go through your code and fix them. So I hope the video was helpful. If it was helpful, kindly subscribe, kindly comment down there if you have any question, and as usual, see you in the next one.